It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship, our 8th round of 9 for 2023. This round is MotoAmerica Superbikes at Texas. We're in Austin, Texas at the famed Circuit of the Americas road course. Medallia Superbike race number 2 is coming up, and it should be a barn burner because the sun is shining, the heat is up, the track temperature is up, and these riders get to contest with this fantastic circuit. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time national champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, Jake Gagne, business as usual,
yeah.
right, for sure. But it was a warm day yesterday, and some things crazy can happen when that happens.
Yeah, it was obviously very hot yesterday, hot again today. But I think the big story yesterday, Richie Escalante getting that maiden podium, and everybody was really stoked to see JD Beach up there with those guys.
Yeah, JD Beach didn't get the start he wanted, as he said. But let's take a look at Race 1 highlights and show you how this entire race unfolded.
Yeah, at the start, it was the two guys that we've seen at the front a lot this year. Obviously, Josh Herrin takes the lead as they went up over through turn 1. Jake Gagne took a shot at him right as they came onto that back straightaway down in turn 11 on the opening lap. And then Richie Escalante started to go to work. You can see he ends up going past Herrin here. PJ Jacobsen ends up going past Herrin, and you can see JD Beach just in there behind Herrin at that point as well. He goes up underneath. Unfortunately, Josh's bike started to smoke pretty badly. And then the battle started to ensue for that third place between PJ Jacobsen and JD Beach. There's Gagne going across. JD would close all the way up onto the back of Escalante, but he'd ultimately finish third behind Richie.
Yeah, and for JD Beach, it had been a while, the American flat track star, but the 4th consecutive win for Jake Gagne. And the strides that they've made on that motorcycle is pretty impressive, Jay. So you look at the fresh and lean progressive Yamaha of Jake Gagne. What we have found out recently is they came here, they tested, and then they started to go in a certain development direction. And the thing that's surprising to me was that what Jake Gagne was telling me was they touched everything on the motorcycle. Yeah. We're talking geometry, we're talking electronics, we're talking about suspension, stiffness. And the big thing is trying to get that motorcycle to slow down for Jake Gagne. And Jay, this is what this stud is all about.
Yeah, 4 different race winners you see this year with Gagne, Beaubier, Herrin, and PJ Jacobsen there at Brainerd. We've had 8 different podium finishers. So yesterday with Escalante and JD Beach joining, we had 6. Now we're up to 8. So, you know, 3rd consecutive championship, obviously, for Jake Gagne. He's been on a roll. Did it a little bit different way this year with consistency and taking these race wins like he has started to do here late.
And if you're just joining us this year, his main rival in the championship, Cameron Beaubier. Well, I mean, Josh Herrin is definitely a main rival in this championship before he wrapped it up. But Cameron Beaubier doesn't race for the rest of the season because of some head injuries. So for Jake Gagne, he's definitely got his eyes thinking about the race today, but also if you look forward to next season, it's going to be very interesting because the Tytler Cycles BMW team, of course, of Cameron Beaubier, they have an entire season of data now that they can look at on the 2023 machine. So you got to be thinking about that as well.
Thinking about it for sure. And obviously we're thinking about Cameron. And for Herrin, he's going to be there as well next year after the data they've collected as well.
But JD Beach was definitely a superstar of yesterday, and he's with the 3rd member of our broadcast team, Hannah Lopa.
For JD Beach, it's only his 2nd weekend back on a full-blown superbike and already a podium appearance. JD, does it get any better than this? No pressure.
I don't know about no pressure. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and to get that podium yesterday was great. But it sucks that we have to race again today because I feel like if I don't get one again, then it's just a fail. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's hot out again, but we're here to fight, and hopefully we can do the same as we did in the race yesterday. But if all else fails, it's going to be a lot of fun.
JD Beach having fun out there, but he has certainly set the bar quite high for himself, guys.
Yeah, and you know, with JD, Jason, obviously, he trains really hard, right? Like extremely hard. So for JD Beach, he's acclimated to these conditions. But if you think about it, if you think about a rider who's had so much success in road racing and he races American flat track and he gets his chance to come back here, what other attitude are you going to have other than it's super fun?
Well, it is fun, but we know where the fun is. It's at the front. And for JD Beach, I think for him to be having a lot more fun at the front, it's going to take a better start because that's what we saw him suffer with yesterday. Bad start, and he had to come through a lot of fast guys to get to that spot that he eventually finished. So I think for JD, if he can get a little bit better start, he got pinched off up in turn 1 yesterday, and if he can get a better start and get away with Jake, I think his lap times were there because he was going fast. He was the fastest rider on the track for the last 3 or 4 laps.
Well, it's nearly 100 degrees under the sun, and Hannah is still down on the grid with another guest.
Richie Escalante finally secured his first career Superbike podium yesterday. Richie, what are the odds you can do it again today?
Yes,
Well, finally podium, so today is a new day. I feel really good this morning. I really like the bike. I think improve a little bit more. So we'll see today. I hope to start really good. We'll see what happens in the first corner, and after that, just push to the end. So really happy, thanks to my team, and I try my best. Thank you.
Certainly doesn't hurt to have clear track in front of you starting from the front row is Richie Escalante, guys.
That's always an advantage, especially when we look at Circuit of the Americas, Jason, because this track goes up and down, and it's technical, and it's fast, and it's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that camera there's at the top of turn 1, and it's a big steep uphill, Greg, and you make a hard left and go straight back down in through those all fast S's. They start fast, and they get slower as you progressively go through them till you get to turn 10. That's wide open, down into the first hard braking into turn 11. Then you have another big hard braking spot at the end of that straightaway in turn 12. A lot of mistakes can be made there. Then you have a little stadium section there, turns 13, 14. Different gearing, different types of lines all through there. You will see 16, 17, and 18 on the right side of the tire for a long time before you brake hard for 19 and 20 and then make that way back onto the start-finish line.
Fun racetrack, and it demands a lot of the riders. And this rider demands a lot of the rest of the field. Coming off of a track record for qualifying and for the race yesterday, he's going to try to get another win.
And of course, that record held from 2017 by my partner here, Roger Hayden. And Roger, I guess, records are inevitably going to fall. But geez, yours held for like 6 years. That's a pretty impressive run here. But Jake has just been magical here. But the interesting thing to me, and yes, the morning warm-up, you never know what agendas everybody has out there. But Richie Escalante was 13 one-thousandths away from Jake in the morning warm-up. We don't see that very often.
No, and just the confidence, getting that podium yesterday, you can see the confidence rolling into this morning's warm-up, and that's the way it starts. You start getting on podiums, and then in practice and warm-ups and all that, you're right there with Jake, and it's just kind of a snowball when it all comes together. But also, too, we had the top 6 or 7 guys this morning all within 9/10.
Yeah, super close.
Super close. We haven't seen that all weekend. So a lot of these guys have really made a huge jump. This weekend, Ashton Yates right here on the Scheibe BMW. How impressed have we been of him this weekend? Almost on the second row. Qualified 7th, was 6th there toward the end of qualifying. Got bumped down to the 3rd row there toward the end. Got caught up in somebody else's mechanical on Friday, so a good bounce back for him, and yesterday inside the top 10 in the race as well.
Yeah, he's been really on form, and again, keep in mind, folks, that's the older generation Superbike out there. It's the S1000R, so obviously doing a great job with that. And the fascinating thing to me here, obviously with JD Beach, had that absolutely great run. That kind of confidence. I mean, JD's a very seasoned racer, obviously, but does that elevate him now? To maybe think he could maybe get after this for a win?
Well, I think they all know they need to make a big jump to catch Jake.
Yeah.
I mean, it said 2.5 seconds at the finish line. It was really closer to 5. So I think for JD, another podium would be great, or at least maybe target second. So for him, I think obviously you want to do better, but I think another podium, he would be happy. That would be solid. That's all I think he could ask for coming into this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, the interloper here, the guy we're not sure about, is Josh Herron. He was able to run with Jake early yesterday until his bike developed some issues. Will he be able to take the battle to the 3-time champion Jake Gagne? We're about to find out. Medallia Superbike coming at you.
Which is brought to you by Medallia, the pioneer in customer and employee experience. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Geico Motorcycle. Visit geico.com to see how easy covering your ride can be.
Medallia Superbike race number 2. The starting grid saw Jake Gagne break the track record. That was Roger Hayden's from 17, Herron and Escalante.
Then we have PJ Jacobson, JD Beach, and Brandon Posh a little further back. Ashton Yates, another motor swap for Corey Alexander for this race. Matthew Skoltz, Stefano Mesa, Hayden Gillum, and Bobby Fong, who we saw battling for 6 yesterday in this race, so he's going to want to come forward. Flinders, De Silva, Lewis, Nolan Lampkin, Giannato, and JC Camacho. And then we have Arango Davis, Zach Schumacher, Manny Segura, Justin Meese, and Zach Butler. And just on the back there is Jeremy Walker on his Ducati.
Yeah, so a full field. Some of these racers are nice and toasty. Well, for this guy right here, Josh Herrin, he's looking for redemption from yesterday. Let's see if he can get this one in the books.
Well, just like Greg and Jason were talking about, Josh Herrin, if they've got that bike working, we know that bike is fast, Roger, and we know Josh, when he's on, can be really, really quick, too. And he was the one guy, I mean, he led for a bit yesterday until the bike seemed to go off.
Yeah, he led early in the, even on the first day, the first practice here, he led early. And this morning was another guy really close to Jake Gagne, just a couple tenths off. So, you know, we talk about it a lot, those guys being close to Jake, that's one lap.
Yeah.
You know, Jake is able to do those lap times for 12 of them, and that's what's going to count. But I think Josh Herrin definitely has the potential. When they tested here a couple weeks ago, he was really fast and, you know, had that motor issue yesterday and this morning. It looked like it was running good looking at the trap speeds. He's feeling pretty good. So, you know, just struggling in a couple areas, just watching yesterday, you know, 11 and 12, getting the bike slowed down a little bit. So, great team, and he wants to get second in the points, so he's going to need to have a good weekend. But definitely a guy that's aggressive early, wants to bring the fight to Jake, so he's one to keep an eye on.
And a couple of other guys, three guys, quickly let's run through them. Matthew Scholz, so fast last year. We've talked about that so often. Just struggling throughout the day. He was struggling again in the morning warm-up. There's the number 50 right behind him, a Bobby Fong, pole at pit, but had that motor blow up early, and they've been behind the 8 ball the whole time. He starts 12th, and hands up for him, so that could be a problem here. That's not good.
I think he wants to wait to be last, possibly, and just letting everybody know, hey, you know, a lot of the guys with this heat, they want to be last. For one, they don't want the bike to overheat. You know, if you go out there and you get going, you come around and you're the first one there and everybody else is cruising, well, you're going to sit on the starting line for a couple minutes. Your body's going to get hot. Your bike's going to get hot. So probably just kind of wait. And there's a certain amount of time you can wait, though, until they give you a penalty. So you kind of gotta be careful. But for Matt, has struggled this weekend. A little problem the first practice, but you know, whatever the reason is, they have struggled this weekend. Bobby Fong, bike issues a couple times, was really fast, and yesterday's race though worked his way up into sixth, make a mistake. So this is going to be a big race for those two. How are they going to end the weekend?
Yeah, and then Stefano Mason, his first ever appearance on a Superbike here on the Tytler Cycle BMW, replacing Cam Beaubier. Just a huge learning curve for him, but he seems to be soaking it up, Roger.
And just learning every time this morning was really fast, so made a huge step. There's so much to take on whenever you jump on a Superbike, especially, you know, a factory Superbike like Tytler Cycle with all the things that you can change, and just you can get lost.
Absolutely. We also have a Superbike Cup battle that'll be unfolding as well. So let's go, Medallia Superbikes.
For Gagne, it was business as usual. He'll come across the stripe and take his 10th win of the season. But new to the podium, Richie Escalante.
It's the first podium, so I want more, and see you tomorrow.
Followed by a long-awaited return to the box, JD Beach. And to the line they come. JD Beach wheel in the air, a podium finish, and he's happy. Will the first for Escalante spark a new streak? Will Beach get a better start and challenge for a win? It's all to play for in Central Texas right now. All right, his bike's on their warm-up lap here. Medallia Superbike race number 2. All these riders are going to get their chance to get after it, as we're only, I don't know, about a mile or so away from getting to the starting grid.
Yeah, not far at all. And you know, now's the time when you get back to the line. We've kind of documented it a little bit here this weekend. It's not as important to push on your warm-up lap here today because of the heat in the track, and obviously you know, your tires are going to get pretty warmed up pretty quickly. These guys make their way back up to the line.
Yeah, and physically as well, it's a 12-lap race. And so for some of these racers, Jason, they've already been on the track once, sometimes twice already today.
Correct. We have so many different riders now running different classes, don't we? Everybody runs. So a lot of riders are running 2 classes. So on weekends like this, it's, you know, it can be a bit of a disadvantage unless you've never been here before. Then you get kind of a little bit more track time, so that kind of helps you. For that guy right there, we said earlier, he's got to get a good start. If JD Beach can get off in this kind of in the top 5 right off the bat, it'll make his race a lot easier.
Bobby Fong back there on the wrench motorcycles. Yamaha R1. He's just behind Matthew Schultz on the Westby Racing Yamaha R1. Here we go. Medallia Superbike, race number 2. You see those lights go on. Revs go up. Bang, just like that. We're away racing. Front wheel in the air for Richie Escalante. Not the start he wanted, but Josh Herron, he gets a good one on that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati Panigale, but it looks like a pair of Yamahas are going to go around the outside. JD Beach had a notion, but he will slide himself into third, and Herron's having none of Jake Gagne on that fresh and lean progressive Yamaha.
Gagne has to let off just a little bit. When you go down the inside of turn 2, there's a big roller down there, and it just upsets the chassis that much. Gagne couldn't really push the fact as they got to the bottom, and Herron knows that. Herron's ridden on that part of the track, but you can see Gagne already all over the back, and a much, much better start for the 95 of JD Beach. He's got PJ Jacobson behind him, and it looks like, I can't tell. I think
JD's down.
JD's down.
I was going to say,
Turn
Jason,
8.
he was carrying so much corner speed and was closing up through that section. Unfortunately, he asked a little bit too much from the front tire, and he tucks the front, and that's an easy, physically, it's an easy crash. The bike looks okay. He's trying to pick it up to continue.
Yep, and you can see now these guys, as they head out onto the back straightaway, Escalante did a nice job after that kind of a bad launch for the Suzuki rider. You're going to go back here and look at the replay of what you're talking about, Greg. You see the rider in third. As he rolls through, he's going to just tuck the front maybe right about there. You see the front starting to go. And
sorry, Jason, live
big
pictures.
Motor blow.
Big motor explosion.
Hayden Gillum, you can see the oil all over his boots too. I mean, look at the oil all over his right boot. So there's probably going to be a lot of fluid on the track down that back straightaway. So I'm sure, again, Race Direction's going to look at this. You can see it's probably burning him pretty bad right now. He's got to just get that boot off. Bike's on fire as well, and that's going to set the grass on fire. So you can see that thing getting ready to spark up there, Greg.
Yeah, they got to get him away from that motorcycle as it is burning up his skin. That is massively unfortunate for the Disrupt Racing team.
A lot of times, Greg, when it's this hot, when your foot is next to the exhaust, your feet are already really hot. So when you get a motor explode like that and put oil all over, and some of that oil can't find its way into your boot, depending on where it came out the side of the motorcycle. So that's why you saw Hayden limping around there pretty bad.
Take another look at it, Jay.
You saw it before I did, so it's off in the back there, and you can see it's already started. He's up the inside. Look at him trying to get control of this bike and get it to the outside. The other riders were able to do the exact same. I think that's De Silva. Obviously, Max Flinders is there as well. But see his right boot. Look at that. It is covered. So for Hayden just to get control of this bike, and then right now you start to get to the realization that not only is my bike, I think, on fire, but my foot's burning with that oil.
Hot oil.
Yeah.
And so Hayden was calling for the corner workers who leapt to it. A good look at the aftercare Scheibe Racing BMW as they're looking at the dashboard at the temperatures. And again, this gets really tricky. These super bikes make so much horsepower, and it's simple physics. The more horsepower, the more power you make, the more heat is generated. And so for this particular situation, it's very unfortunate for the Disrupt team. But Jason, this might play into the hands of JD Beach, who is going to get another go at this. And a really big moment for JD Beach to pick his motorcycle up and continue, as we have a rule in MotoAmerica that when a red flag comes out, as long as you are actively participating, as here comes Beach back into it. And so,
you see that right clip-on's pretty bent in there, isn't it, Greg? You can see it really close to the fairing, but hey, if there's a crew that you want to bring a bike back to that's got minimal damage that needs to get a turnaround pretty quickly, this is the crew you want to do it with.
Yeah, and if you have a rider who's got a memory like a goldfish and is not going to think about that, as JD knows it's business time for his team. Richard Stamboli, working as his crew chief. Of course, JD Beach filling in for Cameron Peterson, who had surgery and is out for the rest of the season, is here this weekend. Don't forget, to come to these MotoAmerica races. Sometimes you can run into these riders because they are accessible.
Just look at how mellow everybody is. That's the thing, is they know what they need to fix. They've probably taken this bike apart and put it back together a million times. See, Will there is on the throttle side of things already. He's going to get that thing undone and get it sorted out. First thing in, JD's jumping the wall. Richard asks him if he's okay. That's the first thing that's most important. And now you're going to see this crew go to work. Mike Campfield there on the front tire getting that warmer back on. JD's probably able to get a drink, and they know they probably would have a minimum of 5 minutes or so to get this handled. That oil cleanup might take quite a bit longer than that, though.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that there's a little bit of damage to the Alpine Star's leather suit. If you're new to motorcycle road racing, we simply call that suit that JD has on leathers, and he's going to get the ice vest on to cool his body temperature down. They're also equipped with air suits, as are, Jason, the suits you use day and easy as well. And so if the airbag was deployed in his particular suit, the Alpine Star suit, they have 2 charges in there. So he won't even really have to change that suit if he doesn't need to. But the crew on the gas right now to fix this bike.
The technology in our suits and in our equipment now for all the riders is incredible. And we've talked about the heat a lot this weekend for the riders, but how about these crews that have to sit there and work on a bike that's just come off the racetrack? The thing's on fire just about. I mean, it's just radiating so much heat. And these guys are down there taking care of things. Hannah?
See, JD Beach is up and okay. The team is still hard at work on the motorcycle over here. JD, tell us about what happened out there and how the bike was feeling once you picked it back up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what happened. I just lost the front. I mean, I got a great start, and I was just going to try and sit there until the back straightaway and see what kind of unfolded going into turn 12, and I just tucked the front, and I guess the dirt tracker in me, I just ran and picked the bike up, and I just wanted to get it back to the pits, and unfortunately we had the red flag, and I'm not too sure what happened with that, but I was able to get the bike back. I couldn't go through the right-handers because the bar was bent, so every time I tried to turn right, it would lock up the front brake, so I just had to nurse the thing back, but we got it back. The team's going to work hard, try to get it going again. I don't think it's much damage, and we'll try and get a great start again. We'll see what happens.
Now, the red flag, unfortunately, was caused by your good friend Hayden Gillum leaking fluid down onto the track. Bad luck for him, but he kind of did you a big favor here. How do you regroup after a red flag situation like this, thinking you were completely out of it? Now you have another opportunity to give it another go.
I just hope I got my one mistake out of the way, so we'll see what happens. The bike, like I said, it wasn't too bad, and I mean, we're racers. We make mistakes, and the track's real greasy with how hot it is, but we'll line up and we'll go again.
Thanks, JD. Glad you're up and okay.
I don't know if it was the dirt tracker in him that caused him to run and go pick up the bike. That's just the JD Beach in him and the competitor in him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's not going to give up. And the hardest part is that you run over your bike hoping that in a small crash like that it's not a big deal, but that bar was bent.
Richie Escalante didn't get the best launch after the first start, so he's going to get another opportunity to do that. We'll step away here at Circuit of the Americas. On the other side, we'll get this Medallia Superbike Race 2. Get it going.
All right, as the teams regroup, the riders try and catch a little bit of cool off. Those ice vests, I think, that's a pretty phenomenal idea here. Look at the scope of this oil down and the cleanup that's going on. What the guy in front is doing is he's walking along, and you see him occasionally where he'll scuff his feet. And what he's doing is just checking the grip quotient. Is he feeling it being really slippery? And you also saw him how he was holding his arms out. And what he's literally doing is saying, this is how wide it is. And now he's starting to narrow up. And I got to tell you, Hayden Gillum, when that thing let go, where he did a brilliant job of trying to get it offline and out of the way as much as he could, especially knowing that his foot was so hot and the bike was starting to catch fire. But they just have this truck in front that literally it drops this oil dry, kitty litter, whatever term you want to use, super absorbent stuff. And then oftentimes there's a bar that will grind it into the track a little bit. And what that does is it just helps accelerate the absorption. And then those sweepers coming up behind it clean it right off. There is a true science to this, Roger, and they are doing a fabulous job under the direction of the officials. Watching the back, folks, you just see that red Disrupt Suzuki right there.
Seems like when he started back shifting, that first back shift, the motor let go. And at this point, he's just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid the other riders. So, he did a great job. But he's trying to get off the track because he couldn't slow down. He couldn't go left. His leg is burning. You can see that how hot that is there. He's already had his leg hanging off. And at this point, he's wanting help, and you can see the fire now, the grass. So not sure if the bike burned, but that's probably started a pretty good little fire there. But most importantly, you can just see how hot he is. I mean, I know Hayden is a strong dude, and for him to be hurrying up trying to get his boot off, must be some serious burns.
Well, and the impressive part to me was that he was hurting so bad, and yet he didn't just dump the bike and get after it. He tried to get the bike cleared up. The two guys that got caught out by that just a little bit that are going to get a break with this red flag are Gabriel Da Silva, and I think it was the 88 of Max Flinders, who got trapped on the right side of Hayden and got run wide there as a result, trying to stay out of the oil, and they just lost all kinds of spots. They're going to get a restart gift here as well, and that's a look there at Matthew Skoltz, and they're having lots of discussions, obviously, Roger, but just great effort under the direction of the MotoAmerica officials by the crew that are cleaning up that oil spill. So now what's this going to do to all the riders very quickly here? First time into turn 12 now.
They just kind of check it out the first lap, and they do a really good job of getting that powder off, but you might see the first lap them kind of checking the grip level.
Being a little careful, you can see Josh Herron getting an ice bath for his head there, cooling it off as we got a lot more to go here in Superbike.
Medallia Superbike coverage is brought to you by Medallia, the pioneer in customer and employee experience. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Geico Motorcycle. Visit geico.com to see how easy covering your ride can be.
As we're back at Circuit of the Americas, Medallia Superbike race number 2, and we had an unfortunate red flag as oil was dropped on the racing surface. There's an incredible crew working to clean that up. And there is Josh Herron trying to stay cool. Got a big fan. Probably some ice in there as well. And it is 97, 98 degrees. It's supposed to peak today at 99. And it's interesting, Jay, because like you were saying, when we got here on Friday, we peaked out at 108 degrees, I believe. And there's just not a lot of difference. I think the humidity is a little bit higher today in the 30 percentile
Yeah,
range.
when it was 108, we still had a little breeze, believe it or not, and we don't have any breeze right now. So it's going to be really hot down there for all those guys working on those bikes and people doing it. And how about all these guys? All of our corner worker crews and track workers out there just working on the track right now.
Yeah, they're definitely hustling in the heat. And for these riders, of course, they wear full helmet, boots, gloves, leathers. The only part of their body that's exposed normally is the neck. And so it can definitely be pretty warm for them as well. And Jay, I had an opportunity to go down this morning and talk to a lot of these teams in the Medallia Superbike paddock and ask them about how the temperature was in their motorcycles, and most of them said that it was running hot, of course, but the range was pretty big. And the data I got, one of the most impressive motorcycles out there in terms of managing the heat was actually the Suzuki GSXR 1000s of the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki team.
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, they've done a great job just continuing to get this motorcycle here to evolve, and credit to that whole team, crew. Obviously, Chris Horwich has done some really good things there to help get the bits they need to get this bike competitive and get this guy on the podium like we saw yesterday. And obviously his teammates done such an incredible job too. Brandon Posh, we've seen him since Laguna Seca do a really nice job just kind of getting his feet going in Superbike now. And looking at Matthew Skoltz.
Matthew Skoltz, who resides in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, gets to train in some pretty extreme heat with the humidity added to it. But this is reminiscent, this type of environment is reminiscent of where we were at the Ridge, what was it, Jay, 2 years ago? Ridge Motorsports Park, where we had 112 degrees.
Those were big time records that got blown off the record charts up there in Washington. We don't really have a lot of these really silly hot weekends very often.
Laguna 06 maybe, but
yep.
What's going on, Hannah?
Walking up and down the pit lane here as riders are getting ready to head back out. Not a lot of people had a lot to say. You know, I checked in with Herron. He's just trying to stay focused, trying to stay cool. I checked in with Skoltz. Kind of same thing there. You know, he's been having some issues throughout the weekend, technical issues, and I asked him, you know, how's the bike feeling? Is it feeling any better? I understand that the team made some changes to the motorcycle this morning. He said it's really kind of hard to get a feel for things with less than a lap in the books, so he's just going to have to play it by ear when he heads back out.
Yeah, and of course, the teams can make any changes they want during red flag conditions with the exception of changing the tires. And we know that this is going to be an original grid start as Matthew Skoltz enjoying some happy time. The race is going to be reduced to 10 laps. But of course, in this heat, we have to give a shout out to really everybody on our crew, especially all the camera operators and all the people, support staff that support them. And of course, the corner workers that have been dealing with this heat all weekend long for 3 straight days, as well as all the fans that arrived here to experience this first time that MotoAmerica has been at Circuit of the Americas on their own. Of course, been here with some classes before in support of MotoGP, and this is a big lunge for MotoAmerica to come here to Circuit of the Americas, and I think it's paid off. There's been tons of people here.
If you've ever been to COTA, the media center here is like, it's so cool. It's like cool. It's you know, it's a very cool media center, and they've actually, I walked by it earlier, they've blocked part of it off, and they've allowed fans to come and sit in the air conditioning, and it's all dark in there. It's like a movie theater. So they're getting a chance to be able to kind of hang out in the AC and watch some of the racing just outside here, kind of like what we're doing.
So this should be a quick start procedure for this Medallia Superbike race number 2, start number 2. Jason Bridmore, explain quick start procedure to us.
Quick start. They're going to go out right now as you see them leaving the pits. They're going to come around to the grid, and they're going to find one member of their team sitting there waiting for them so they can just get kind of gridded up. And, you know, MotoAmerica's not going to keep these guys sitting out there for very long. They're all going to get to their spots. They're going to let them go out for one little warm-up lap. And, you know, for me, Greg, whenever something like this happened during a red flag and I knew they were going to go put a bunch of oil dry down or that was going to be on the track, it's going to give these riders a real chance to see where that is on the surface, on the track. I know they've all been told where it is, but they're going to get to visibly go see it. If you look at the left side of your screen there, that's what that's going to look like for them when they get down to the other end of the straightaway. That was from earlier in the weekend. You can see they just put that dry sweep down as somebody goes straight. Not sure what's going on there. And JD Beach looks like he missed the sighting lap.
He did.
This means that he's probably going to have to start from the last row of the grid. Is that correct? I believe it's last row. He missed. If you missed the sighting lap, I think when he comes back around, all the riders are going to come back around, grid up. He's going to follow them out once they get. You can see the riders having a look at all the stuff on the track right now. So even though they've swept it, you can still see a lot of tire tracks there. And, you know, the riders that are going through it, that's what you kind of have to do. You kind of got to go test it, see what it's like, see what it's going to be like. And when they go over that the first lap through, it's going to be big, you know, a lot of like a cloud of dust almost when they go through that. But we'll check on that about JD.
Chalk dust.
Yeah, chalk dust, yeah. But we'll check on that for JD. But I do believe that if you don't make the sighting lap, you might have to start at the back.
Yeah, and he won't. It's not the warm-up lap. It's not, you know, starting from pit lane type of situation. But he'll probably have to grid up from the back of the grid, which is going to initially thwart his podium chances. He's going to have a lot of charging to do in the heat here in Texas. So now as we get ready to look at this grid of Gagne, Herron, Richie Escalante, this bodes well for Richie Escalante, as he did not get a great start. He kind of let that lead group get away from him.
He did, but he was there still, Greg. He was fourth. It wasn't that big of a deal. I thought it was going to be a much bigger deal, because you and I both kind of, when we saw the original start, we were like, oh, you know, the thing wheelied a little bit off the line, and it looked like it cost him. But really, he did a really nice first lap, and I think with JD tipping off in front of him, it just cleared some space for him, and he was able to kind of put himself back through. And a lot of times this is where the riders, if they still had a major concern with the back straightaway, they'd wave down a MotoAmerica official. So they all look like they're pretty happy with what they saw. They all know what they're going to have to deal with when they get into that area of the track. But you can see they've got these guys on and off the track pretty quickly.
Yeah, and they're definitely ushering some of the team members off because they know that these bikes are sitting there idling,
Yes,
and they need
that's
to get
exactly
them
right.
on their
going.
way.
That's
yeah.
right. We don't want to see.
Even with big, look, when you go to a MotoAmerica race and you look at the Medallia Superbike, the full-blown Superbikes that we see, the Tytler's bikes and the fresh and lean progressive Yamaha bike, the Warhorse HPC, one of the distinguishing factors are these massive radiators, much bigger than you would see on a normal street bike. There's JD joining the race circuit.
And really the biggest bummer for JD is if he found a problem right now not doing that siding lap. After the siding lap, he could have pulled in, you know, and got some extra work done. So, I mean, look, we're talking about the attack team here. There's going to be nothing wrong with that. But if there was, that's the only disadvantage that he would have had missing the siding lap. So, again, these riders aren't going to be pushing as hard as they can on this.
No, and you saw Heron's leg go out. Actually, yeah,
letting
just
people know, hey, I'm not
on the boogie right now.
I'm not going race pace at the moment.
Hannah.
Well, you heard JD Beach on the grid. He set the bar really high for himself yesterday, so I'm sure he's going to be pretty disappointed to be starting from the back of the grid. Fortunately, that team has the bike back together, and the reason that he missed that pit lane exit was because they were just making sure that that brake lever was doing what it needed to do. They were making some last-minute adjustments before they let him head out all the way. So safe to say the equipment underneath him will be reliable, and he's confident that he can trust it, but he's definitely got his work cut out for him to make his way through the field and try to get back out front where he wants to be.
Yeah, and for the fresh and lean progressive Yamaha team, they have one thing in mind first and foremost, and that's safety of their riders.
That's
without
exactly
question.
right. Yeah, and this is always curious. You know, you can see all the riders going down in there. Some are going to avoid it, some are going to go through it, and it's amazing how that stuff just dries up. Like, it literally dries up that oil pretty quickly, and yeah, it's amazing how good it works.
If I was driving that pace car back there, I'd be riding it through there too, just
right
to help
through
these riders out a little
Yes.
bit. But you know, it's different too. You look at that track and you say, well, why don't you approach it a different way? But when you're at speed at 180 miles an hour plus on these super bikes, your momentum is going to just take you to a certain part of the racetrack.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it does that. And as the bikes get a little bit more horsepower, it's important for you to keep, always try to stay 2-3 seconds ahead of them if you can. Obviously, on some of the smaller bikes, anybody that's ridden a small bike and then jumped on something fast, all the straightaways get a little shorter. All those little switchbacks between the S's get a little faster on these big bikes because of the speed. So, and again, it's the slowest warm-up lap we've probably seen in 2 or 3 years.
These riders are definitely. The wind has picked up, as you can see the American flag flying, so at least that part of the racing circuit. And with the way Circuit of the Americas is designed, the wind can be coming from a couple of different directions. It's very fascinating, and something that we found out when we went to the top of the COTA Tower a couple of years ago. So 10 laps now scheduled for Medallia Superbike race number 2, part 2. As the number 1 plate, the 3-time, makes his way to his pole position grid spot, trying to get race win number 11 this season. And number 2, Josh Heron, wants to put a stop to that. And this guy, Richie Escalante, does he have all of a sudden this surge of confidence and swagger to get the job done? Lights are on, revs are up, we're away racing. Josh Heron got off the line perfectly.
He did, and I think Gagne is going to kind of tip in here on him. As you can see, Heron's going to get the start. Gagne's going to just be to the outside of him and slot himself in there. Everybody looks like they're going to get through that turn 1 nice and clean. Heron opens up the entry to 2, and Gagne's right behind him. Unlike the first start, is it Escalante, I believe, in 3rd,
yes,
PJ 4th, and Brandon Posh right now is your top 5.
So Brandon Posh coming off of an incident yesterday, flying the flag up front for the moment for the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki team.
Escalante.
Right behind Escalante. What do you think about Escalante?
No, I just see him. He's there in 3rd, and I know Brandon is just back in 5th right now. So for both, that's a good start for both those guys. Matthew Skoltz, I can see him there up in behind Brandon. So first lap down. Let's see if Gagne does anything. Nope, Heron actually opened up a little bit of a gap that time as they get ready to go down this back straightaway. It looks like, again, it gets so tight in there, Greg.
Oh, one rider having a bit of an issue.
That's Mesa on the right side in the white helmet, if that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, I am. Yep. So
JD
Bobby
Beach.
JD Beach is on the move early on.
Yeah, remember he came from all the way back there. So these guys running down through this dry sweep for the first time, a little bit cautious, but look who isn't. At number 2 is just out front and trying to yard away from these guys. Right off the bat, I see another bike starting to smoke back there. I'm not sure what bike that was. Is that Bobby Fong's bike?
You know, it looked like it was coming from there, but let's not speculate just yet, because that could have been rear brake, somebody dragging the rear brake as well. But
no, whoever it was
looked like Ashton Yates. Looked like 22.
Like Ashton, yeah, good call.
On the aftercare Scheibe Racing BMW. PJ Jacobsen trying to find some traction. Most of these riders in the top 3 rows, Jason, are on the Dunlop R7, R5. And Matthew Schultz.
It looks like there's 2 riders involved, though, because it looked like there was another rider that I saw as well. And
is that JD Beach?
I can't tell, but Matthew's laying on the track there. JD's running over to him. I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if we see our second red flag unless Matthew starts getting up here pretty quickly. So riders are up over the top of turn 1, headed down into turn 2 right now.
And it is Josh Herrin leading the way from Jake Gagne and Richie Escalante and PJ Jacobsen. That's Ducati from Yamaha, from Suzuki, from BMW. Yeah, and it really, look, Gagne's starting to struggle just a little bit with some transitions.
Yeah, definitely 2 bikes. So it's the 95 and the 11.
Schultz is, we're hearing that Matthew Schultz is up.
Yeah. And these 3 guys are starting to just try to creep away. Same as yesterday. Herrin gets off to a good start. Gagne, it's kind of unusual seeing him. What was he back at the start of the second lap? Half a second. We're used to seeing him pull that gap on everybody else. So good to know that Matthew's up and okay over there. Coming out. Look at the gap that these first 4 guys have got. So that obviously split the field up a little bit, didn't it? Yeah.
On the acceleration onto this back straightaway, the one bike that wasn't spinning yet of these top 3 was the number 1. You can see Herrin eking closer and closer to that oil dry that was laid down from the cleanup from the oil spill, but he's choosing to kind of stay on the inside of that. Boy, Josh,
it is Bobby's bike smoking. So Ashton's bike did whatever it did, but we were right, I think, at the beginning when we saw Bobby Fong's bike smoking a lot too, and it's happened in the same place twice. So maybe if we follow him for just a little bit longer, we'll see if it's happening everywhere.
Something on decel, maybe on deceleration.
It goes from a decel all the way in there, and it looks like right when he starts to pick the throttle back up after a long decel period off that back straightaway.
And definitely, we know that Bobby Fong likes to ride the rear brake as well.
Yeah, but that's not.
But that's
rear brake.
so late. Yeah, that wouldn't be rear brake. That wouldn't be meaning like locking up the rear tire and having smoke come off of it. Josh Herrin doing an outstanding job at the moment as he has a look over at his pit board to see the situation. Richie Escalante on this second lap of this 10-lap restart goes 2:09.660 for the fastest lap of the race so far.
We heard Richie say yesterday that he'd love to go. He's happy to be on the podium. I think everybody was happy to see that. He ends up second yesterday, but he wasn't satisfied. He said, tomorrow maybe I can try to go for the win. And I think that for Richie right now, this is a great opportunity because Gagne is directly in front of him. He's not off splitting and getting away. 2:09.6, as you said, fastest lap of the race for Escalante. So it's obviously very fast in this heat as well. But don't be surprised if you see Gagne try to do something in this next tight left at the bottom of this hill. If he gets out of here okay and can get up behind Herrin. And there's Matthew Schultz walking away. Good to see him up and all right.
All right, so this is the part of the track where Herrin's been really good.
Yep.
He gets to the apex, he gets the Ducati up on the meat of the tire, and then he just starts to drive it out. A little bit of wheel spin for the number 2, Hannah.
And after the issues that they had yesterday, he went out this morning and felt that they were pretty well resolved. The bike felt great. He was able to do some really consistent times. He thinks he has the pace to win, and he's felt that way all weekend, but just hasn't exactly had luck on his side. He said he's also physically in really good shape, and he's trying to stay hydrated, but this heat is really taking a toll on him. So all of these factors really need to align if he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, and the good news too for cooling the motorcycle is pushing his own air. It keeps his Ducati the coolest it can possibly get in this extreme heat. As Herrin now starting to put some bike lengths between himself and Jake Gagne. Although Gagne, it's a little bit of an accordion effect, but we've seen him closer the lap before.
No, you're exactly right. I thought he would be a little bit closer still, but I almost think you see Escalante's bike getting really loose there. Sideways was Escalante in the middle. And in a way, you know, it looks like Escalante, obviously he's got pace. In a way, him seeing Gagne staying right in front of him, it might help him conserve that tire just a little bit by staying behind these two guys initially. I think if Richie was back and forth and struggling to stay with these guys, I think that the tires would be a lot bigger of an issue for the 54, because we saw him slide back yesterday into the clutches of JD Beach late in the race, if you remember, as he gets into turn 1 really nicely here behind Gagne. But for the 54, if he was to be able to get to the front, it would just, then I'd start to question whether he'd be able to keep that tire underneath him for the whole race.
The other thing, too, is there might be a need for Gagne to separate himself slightly from Herrin in terms of the temperature of the cooling system. It's that one right, that corner right there, where Herrin just seems to carry a little bit more corner speed, as the transition for Gagne doesn't seem to be as comfortable as they went through that section.
I can explain a little bit of that, because Gagne was explaining to me where he gets his downshift for second. He does it right before he gets into turn 4. He goes back from third to second. Herrin carries third gear through that right-hander and then does his back shift after. So Jake's going to be in a lot higher RPM range through that right-hander, but where he gets his downshift is comfortable for him, and it allows him to free up the rest of the S's. Herrin carries a little bit more corner speed and a gear taller and gets his back shift done after turn 7.
And the result of that, of course, is 209.8 for Herrin, 209.8 for Jake Gagne the last time they came by the stripe. As Josh Herrin continues to use basically the middle of the racetrack and stay away from that oil dry from the incident earlier, where the other two riders of the number 1 plate of Gagne and number 54 of Richie Escalante choose to take their traditional line, and Escalante on the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki just loses the front end of the motorcycle, and down he goes.
Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, we knew he was pushing, as you would, and he's trying to get that bike, see if it's okay for him to get going again, see if he can get it back started. But it's really easy to do there. We haven't really seen a lot of riders do that this weekend in turn 12 there, 13 rather. So for him to do it, one of the first riders we've seen do it, and I've seen it a lot during the MotoGP weekends, guys tipping over there.
Yeah, you can see how hot those tires are as those rocks stick with it. Jason?
Just gets in there, and you're going to watch his front tire just fold underneath him. Let's see if he gets anywhere near the curbing. And it, yeah, it just starts to chatter a little bit there as he got to his apex. And
just a little bumpy.
Yeah, just a little bumpy there. But, you know, he just got maybe just on that paint. The paint here, though, Greg, is all FIM homologated. So we can run over curbings here. We can do all those kind of things. So that's a bummer.
Escalante trying to get his Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki going again. And when Jason talks about FIM homologated paint, what he's talking about is there's actually aggregate that's in the paint when they paint it on the ground. So it actually gives the paint some traction. Back up front we go to Josh Herrin, the number 2. He's on that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati. That's the Panigale V4R that Herrin earned this ride at the beginning of the season. And we talked about until yesterday, 69% of the time Herrin's been on the podium. Before he was DNFing yesterday, Jake Gagne is chasing him. And again, there's been a little bit of gap between those two. But somehow it feels like Gagne, it might be trying to keep his R1 cool, Hannah.
He is. When I talked to him earlier today, he said nothing really noteworthy for the bike. It feels really dialed. He's super comfortable out there, but he always heads into the next race the next day, especially on Sunday, with the expectation that while he may have improved his motorcycle, so will the rest of the field. And so he knows that these opening laps will be similar to yesterday. He just needs to be clean and consistent so that he can do what he does best.
A look at Bobby Fong's bike, and it was right about here that we were seeing that puff of smoke that we don't see anymore.
I love it. That's good to see. Bobby Fong just growing up through the field here in 4th, and you can see just behind him, Brandon Posh on that second Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki, and then just behind him Mesa, who we haven't got to talk about very much yesterday. Very much a learning day for Mesa on the 37 BMW, Tyler's BMW that was vacated by Cameron Bovia. So a little bit better run today from Mesa. Probably learned a lot. Just good luck at him as he gets through 16, 17, 18, just a little bit back. 2 more BMWs with Corey Alexander and Ashton Yates trying to hunt down these other 3 guys. There's Corey Alexander and Ashton. For Ashton, talked to him a little bit this morning, and he was actually pretty happy with his pace, and they tried something in warm-up that didn't work this morning. For Corey, he didn't get a warm-up this morning. They went to start the bike up and had an engine problem, and the bike started. So he immediately, that crew got to work. As you can see, Ashton trying to work the inside here. Corey Alexander, not quite there. So Corey right now is basically trying a new setup with a new motor.
Hannah?
For Ashton Yates, he's obviously on a much different motorcycle than Corey Alexander, but they found something at pit race, and they continued that momentum here Friday despite having limited track time. He found some confidence into the corners, and overall he feels like he's able to push a lot harder than he's been able to ride all season, and definitely feels like he's able to showcase what kind of rider is, what he's really capable of now that he's got confidence in his motorcycle to do so.
Very talented motorcycle racer, winner in MotoAmerica in some classes of smaller displacement motorcycles. Of course, the pedigree, right, from his dad, Aaron Yates.
Absolutely.
A lot of people know, and it's just a racing family, but it's really good to see Ashton Yates really starting to blend with this aftercare Scheibe BMW. That's a 2016 kind of model, and that S1000 continuing to prove that that design from years ago is still an absolute ripper, as they've been to some places where they've been closest to the fastest top speeds on that older BMW. But back up front we go to Josh Herrin on the Ducati Panigale V4R, a bike that was left vacant by Danilo Petrucci, who went off to World Superbike, and there was no question as to who the Warhorse HSBK Racing Team wanted in the saddle of this Ducati Panigale, and it's Josh Herrin, and he has done a magnificent job all year, including a win.
It's a really interesting race right now. You know, when you watch Jake Gagne, he's just kind of been hounding the back of Herring. He's not really made any big pass attempts, has he? He's just been kind of sitting there. And, you know, Herring, though, still, I mean, look, running in the 209s, whatever they did to this bike overnight, they've obviously made an improvement. And we've seen that a lot from the Herring team, that Warhorse Ducati all year long. They've always been able to find a little something extra after the first day. And they've done so again overnight, giving him a good bike. Here's PJ Jacobson up the hill, and then we're going to go back a little bit further. You're going to see Bobby Fong, really good job on the Wrench R1. Of course, a bike vacated earlier in the year by Dave Anthony.
That's not a special aero package they have, by the way, folks. If you're looking at the Yamaha R1, you can see that those bits and pieces are kind of flaring out as he accelerates. I just think that that's just part of the fairing that isn't secured, and so it creates a little bit of interesting looking aero to the bodywork. Ooh, yeah, didn't quite.
Bobby went through the S's a little funny that time. Like he caught into the first S on turn 4 there. He got over the bumps, and it kind of shot him over to the left. So, yeah, but good ride for him. Where did he end up qualifying, Greg? Was he a little bit further back? Because I know he had a problem in practice
12th
as well. He was 12th.
He was 12th in qualifying.
We've seen some strong runs out of him on the Superbike. Obviously, he got really close to that podium, didn't he, at Brainerd?
In 2020, of course, Bobby Fong won 3 Medallia Superbike races, so he's definitely familiar and has the speed. And this rider right here, what a story for the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki rider, Brandon Posh. I mean, injured, started the season, scheduled to race stock 1000. He got hurt in a training incident. He was out, and then due to the exit of former champ, 2017 champion Tony Elias from the saddle, Brandon Posh got the call, and he's been doing an outstanding job for that team. Looks like Mesa on the Tytler Cycles BMW. That's Cameron Bobier's motorcycle that got vacated. He's starting to fall into the clutches of Corey Alexander. That's the 2023 versus the 2022 BMW M1000RR. You can see the profile difference in the front is quite massive as Mesa moves to the side. Oh, Corey, what a save.
Man.
Whoa. That one will put your heart in your throat.
Yes, that was, you know, that's edge of the tire there, and it looked like that had happened. Corey was still trying to turn the bike. That would be off throttle, still trying to turn the bike underneath him to get it to cut back after he went underneath Mesa. And the bike just shot out from underneath him. And I think that's where a 6'4" stature is going to help him, as you see him dive up the inside of Mesa. And he gets right here, he's trying to turn it back. And as he goes to turn it back, the rear of the bike just kind of snaps around on him a little bit.
Oof.
And gets that bike back underneath him. So he's now going to have to work a little bit harder to get by 2 BMWs, not just 1.
The battle of 3 BMWs, the 2023 M1000RR. Cameron Bobier's bike, occupied by none other than Stefano Mesa. Then you have this 2016 hybrid of the aftercare Scheibe BMW of Ashton Yates trying to go around the outside. And then you have the 2021-2022 version that Corey Alexander is on.
What a great shot that we're getting here from one of our drones high above as we look here at turn 7. And then they're going to go uphill here. This is all uphill a little bit here, Greg. And turn 8 tightens up on itself. Then you got to flick back really quick, back to the left. Then you're going to go on these bikes, you're going to go up to 4th. They're going to go 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Some guys might run the S's in 3rd. And then they're going to go all the way back down through the gearbox here as they come down into turn number 11. And then we'll see who's got the fast bike down the back straightaway.
I think we know. Mace is pretty. I would say that Ashton Yates and Corey Alexander are pretty similar in stature.
Yeah, I think
in
you're
terms
right.
of their height. Mesa is perfectly suited for the BMW M1000RR. Of course, the 22, the peanut butter in the Tytler cycle sandwich right now. This is the battle for 6th place as Josh Herrin continues to lead Jake Gagne by 0.4 of a second over PJ Jacobson, Bobby Fong in 4th, Brandon Posh in 5th, and then it is Mesa. So back up front we go. And the laps are winding down here for Jake Gagne. This is such a massive ride for Josh Herrin. The pace has been solid. Okay, there hasn't been the outlandish 08 lap times, but a 209.776 and a 209.746 fastest laps of the race for both Josh Herrin and Jake Gagne. Now, Jason, they're only a couple ticks off of that. 210.1, 210.4.
Only 4/10 off. Herrin's really had the hammer down the whole race long, and just doing a very nice job controlling the pace. That bike looks a lot better to me than it did yesterday even. Moving around quite a bit more. Looked like it was taking a little bit more energy for Josh to get the bike to do the things that it needed to do yesterday. But he is legitimately right now pulling away from Jake Gagne. That last time by, he's had a 0.7 of a second lead. And you know, for Herrin, he gets back around to the start finish and sees that pit board. He's going to get the white flag, and if he sees a +1 on the board, that's just going to give him that little bit extra boost to keep the hammer down and continue to pull away from that number 1 plate.
Josh Herrin looking for his 10th Medallia Superbike race win of his career. Right now, in terms of the outright career wins in Medallia Superbike, Herrin is tied for 20th position with the likes of Kevin Schwantz and Aaron Yates. This would move him into a tie with the famed Mike Baldwin. Jason, there you go. It's a little stat for you.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and he stayed consistent staying off that tri-sweep down the inside of it the whole race too. So he's just doing things exactly right. This time by, he's gained 4/10 in the first split and another 10th in the second. So he's pulled away half a second in this lap as well. So Gagne obviously has waved the white flag, I think, in this race, and he's just going to be content to take 2nd place as Herrin's just going to keep charging. He's going to have well over a second lead when they come through this time by. I'd be interested to see what they get out on his pit board. But yeah, he's going to be in good form here is Josh Herrin at the moment.
It's been since MotoAmerica Race 2 that Herrin's won a race in Medallia Superbike, all the way back in June. And this is so timely as the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati team looks forward to the 2024 season and what their plans are going to be. So the white flag is out. The last lap for Josh Herrin to bring it home. And he goes 1.4 seconds quicker than Jake Gagne in that lap, but keeps it consistent. A 2:10 flat.
Yeah, really good.
I mean, within just over 2/10 of a second.
Crazy.
Yeah. Herrin is absolutely the class of the field.
And if you watch the way he rides, I really like the shot that we have of him coming out of the last corner, Greg. He kind of rolls in there. You can see him letting go of that front brake lever. And as the bike just starts to get stood up, he cracks the throttle open, and it's just the nicest slide on the edge of that corner. This guy's got incredible throttle control, and I've mentioned it in the past. I've seen him at track days riding for fun, and he does things on a bike that most people just can't do. And for Herrin, he's super comfortable. Lots of bike control out of the number 2, and of course, all of our Medallia Superbike riders here in MotoAmerica have that. But this guy's got a really good feel on the edge of the tire. Look how he gets that thing up off the edge, and he's well on his way now. He has a look over his shoulder, and he sees that he's broke the will of Jake Gagne on that number 1.
All smiles under the helmet for Josh Herrin. So he's going to take his inside the kitty litter line.
He does.
A little bit further over, but yeah, you can see right where he gets on there.
He's comfortable there, and he's not wavered from that every lap. He's just been perfect down into there. And this has been just a great ride. Being able to lap, you know, sort of in this heat too, to be a little over 2/10 slower than your best lap this late in the race, it's a tremendous ride from this young man.
It's been a year of focus for Herrin. The moment that he got the call that he was going to be on this Superbike, all bets were off. He started to train, eat better, dropped a ton of weight, and he had his eyes on each race weekend and what was coming up. And even battling through some injuries this season, having a race win, Josh Herrin has been on point. Final quarter here at Circuit of the Americas for the Warhorse HSBK Racing rider, Josh Herrin. Wheel in the air, checker flag out, and Herrin takes the win in race number 2. Gagne will be second as we await the arrival of the 99. P.J. Jacobson with another outstanding podium finish for the Tytler Cycles BMW team.
Bobby a little further back here, huh?
Yeah.
Bobby Fong's going to get 4th. This is the battle for 5th, or 6th. Brandon Posh finished 5th. Ashton Yates is going to beat Mesa and Alexander across the line for 6th. Good result.
Great job by the 22, and he is pumped about that. He had to work hard for it. But how about this guy? Josh Herrin takes it home for victory, and the solo Ducati rider gets it done. Unbelievable.
Yeah, really good work there. And for Gagne, he's going to go right up alongside Herrin. Congratulate him. Just had the better package today underneath him. And again, testimony to that team. Did a really good job getting him comfortable.
We'll talk to the 33-year-old when we get back about how he was able to pull this great race win off.
Look right there at the number 21. That is Nolan Lampkin coming across the line. And we also see Richie Escalani, who got back up and at least came around and got a finish. He'll be deep in the field, not going to be points. But there is the look at the 21 and Nolan Lampkin. And on the last lap, this is a big development. It looks like Gabriel Da Silva either had a mechanical or dropped or fell. And Nolan Lampkin, Gabriel was in front of Nolan. And this is for the Superbike Cup, which is a fairly prestigious championship for the 1-liter bike supporting the Superbikes. And Lampkin, on the last lap, after having been behind Gabriel Da Silva for the whole race, Lampkin goes into the leading. Da Silva has fallen down the order. This may clinch the championship for Nolan because there's only 2 races left, and he was make sure I got this right, 48 points up coming in, and so all he had to do was score 2 more than Da Silva, and he may well have done that. He might be your Superbike Cup champ, Roger.
Yeah, and for Nolan, what a great year he's had, even in Stock 1000. So it's great for him. Puts a lot in his program. Great kid, and you talk about being prestigious, but also some money. For a guy like Nolan to go right back into his race program.
Yeah, for that Tom Wood Power Sports machine. But Josh Herrin, just a great run for him. And, we talk a lot, Roger, about Jake's relentless pace. Today it was Josh who had that relentless pace.
Yeah, and Josh, I worked with Josh, and then, felt good coming into the weekend. Yep. And also, him and his team. And, he put in a lot of work this offseason, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, how hard he put the work in on the bicycle. And, was a little disappointed with yesterday, but they had that test here a couple weeks ago, and he was really fast. And I think today he was able to win on a little harder tire, and looks like it gave him that comfort. He just looked so much better from the very first lap. The bike looked better today as well. So hats off to him and his team. They, a little bit off yesterday morning.
Yep.
Kind of struggled early in that race yesterday, and wow, come out today and put on a good ride.
And that second to the last lap, only under 3/10 off of his best lap. So those hard tires, that harder compound, obviously paying off for him here. And for me, one thing that I watch a lot with Josh, when he's on, he's just a demon on the brakes. And when he's struggling on the brakes a little bit, to me it seems like that backs him up a little bit. He was superb on the brakes today. And
he was avoiding the oil dry.
Yeah.
So, he was braking really deep, but way up, on the left side, which kind of pinches that corner off. And earlier in the weekend, he was kind of struggling in a couple of those spots, 11 and 12, and even 1 getting the bike to slow down. So it looks like they did a good job getting that worked out. But for Josh and his crew and everybody, Ducati's got a big event tomorrow, and they're all going to be celebrating tonight.
Oh, boy, won't they? And the other thing, obviously, Bobby Fong qualified in the 12th spot. Now, a couple of guys weren't able to make that restart, but still in all, up into 4th. That's a great ride.
And Brandon Potts, too. Ashton Yates, great weekend for him. It's good to see.
That's huge to have Ashton in front of the two Tyler Cycle BMWs. You could just see the elation that he had as he came across the line. Look at Jake coming over. Big congratulations to Josh Herron. Jake really getting it, and Josh obviously loving this minute here. And we are going to be hearing from them in just a minute here. But, yeah, he's going to eat that up. And, boy, what a way, as you said, to lead into that big Ducati event here tomorrow, coming off a win. There's PJ. Time for us to check it out. More to come from Medallia Superbike.
Mr. Consistency and the fastest rider on the racetrack in the Medallia Superbike race number 2, Josh Herron, rolls into victory lane, celebrating with his father and his crew and trying to stay cool. So old Phil dumping some water down his leathers, his wife Rachel as well. Let's take a look at those results after this red flag restarted race. Herron with a 4-second victory over Jake Gagne. PJ Jacobson in 3rd. Bobby Fong finishes in 4th. Don't know what was going on there, but obviously everything was good. Good job by Brandon Posh, Yates, Mesa, and Alexander. Let's get right down to Hannah.
Josh Herron back on the box. Safe to say the stars did align for him today after the conversation we had earlier. Josh, how does it feel to dominate that race in the fashion that you did?
So good. This is what this team deserved the whole year. I said it all year, man. We just needed one track that we could ride this bike at prior to coming here, and we'd be up there. So thank you to the guys for not giving up on me. We've had an up and down season, but I think, man, if we come back next year, I think we'll be a force to be reckoned with, because this thing was working nice today. We battled through adversity. Logan, Danny, Simone, all the guys on the team worked so hard to get this thing back up and going a couple different times this weekend. A crash, the motor problem yesterday. But I just got to thank the entire Warhorse HSBK Racing, Ducati New York team. Thank you to Ducati Corsa, Fresh and Lean, OnlyFans, Arai Helmets, Alpine Stars Leathers, everybody that's involved with my program. Huge shout out to Roger Lee Hayden for being an amazing coach this year. I know it's been a little bit under the radar because we can't talk about it a whole lot, but the dude's amazing. I grew up racing with him. He's an awesome guy, and I hope that more riders pick up next year and decide to work with him. So thank you to my entire team. Thank you to Tavant, Warhorse, everybody that's involved in this whole thing, Parts Unlimited, Ducati USA, everybody. Thank you so much.
Congrats, Josh Herron, today's Medallia Superbike race winner, guys.
That is awesome. So let's take a look at these championship point standings. We know obviously it's wrapped up, Jake Gagne, but Herron continuing to solidify his 2nd place position in this championship with 2 races left in the season. Well, that'll do it for us. Medallia Superbike race number 2. And Josh Herron, the number 2, walks away victorious. What's going to happen at New Jersey Motorsports Park? I have a feeling the weather's going to be significantly different in a week and a half when we arrive to Millville, New Jersey. For Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. We certainly hope to see you there for our final 2 Medallia Superbike races of the season.
I'll tell you what, for Josh, one of the things,